I want to make sure if a student struggled through something, or it was a hard transition into university life, or they moved from far away and they missed their family, or them moving in was the first time they were ever on campus because they chose to come sight unseen. Like, those are the really interesting human parts of the experience. And they're the part of the experience that students need to feel like, oh, I can overcome that too.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast, a show where we bring together Marcom leaders from both inside and outside higher ed to give you fresh perspectives on successful content creation and strategy in higher education. My name is John Azzoni. I'm the founder of Unveiled, a video production company working specifically with colleges and universities. Learn more about our work, including our subscription approach to storytelling, at unveiled.tv. That's UNVEILD. And if you like this podcast, then you'll love the Higher Ed Storytellers Digest. It's my free weekly newsletter where we cover a lot of ground about content creation and strategy. Sign up at unveiled.tv/newsletter. All right, let's get on with the show. Well, geez, this episode took some effort to bring this one to you because this is actually take two. So we recorded this episode with Brenn and Patrick several weeks ago, and great conversation. Got to the end of it, and we're waiting for all the cameras to upload whatever, to do the stuff that Riverside requires. And for some reason, Brenn's camera is not uploading. And I'm like, oh, it's probably fine. It's there. Long story short, Riverside lost the entire episode. So we had to get Brenn and Patrick back on the show to have another conversation. And so I very much appreciate them coming back to re-record. And actually, the second conversation is quite good compared to the first one. But we are talking about University of Maine's video series called Life in the Pines. And it is really cool. I stumbled upon this video series and thought it just felt like very fresh. And it was just like a new way of telling program overviews, student stories, student perspective, that kind of thing. So if you get a chance, go to UMaine's YouTube channel, check out the series. Really cool. Would be great to have that context going into this episode. But if not, we're going to try and explain the episodes for you if you're just listening. So in this episode, we talk about the series, how it came about, how it fits into their marketing enrollment strategies. We talk about what success looks like for the series. And we talk about how the series helped them get students to raise their hand and say they wanted to be part of this and they wanted to be filmed themselves, which is a big barrier for schools, is trying to find students to be in these videos, to be in videos in general. And we also take you behind the scenes of how the production went down and how they achieved the look and the feel that they're going for and why. So all of that makes for a great episode. Hope you love it. Here's my conversation with Brenn Borror and Patrick Wine. All right, Brenn and Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we are back again. Full disclosure, we recorded this episode a couple weeks ago, and for people who are listening, and Riverside just crapped the bed, and I was really excited coming off of that interview, like, oh, that was just everything I wanted it to be. And then I went to go download all the cameras, and I had none of Brenn's camera and 8 seconds of Patrick's camera and no audio from anyone except for me. So all you could hear was me going, uh-huh.
Honestly, that would survive so well as a meme right now. So yeah.
Yeah. So these guys have graciously come back. So if you just wanted to give you that context in case, I'm sure someone at some point will be like, as we said a couple weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, but we're talking about University of Maine's YouTube channel, specifically their Life in the Pines series. And I think I came across UMaine through doing a Claude search for schools that have really active YouTube channels and that are doing good stuff, because I was researching for a different episode and UMaine was on there, and that's how I discovered Life of the Pines. So whatever you guys are doing is working for the AI. So maybe that could be a whole other episode about what you're doing for the AEO or GEO, whatever it's called. But anyways, I'll let you guys describe the Life of Pines series for people who haven't seen it. And then just, this is one of those episodes where it would be helpful if everyone had watched the videos before they listen, but most people are just listening. So we'll do our best to just kind of describe what they are for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So Life in the Pines at its core is really a student story series. So we are featuring various students, predominantly undergraduate students, But the way we try to position this in a more unique way, or a way that feels like the University of Maine, is to really try to produce it in a way that feels kind of unfiltered, right? So like, we're not telling the students what to say. We're not asking them canned questions. We're really trying to get them to share their personal stories and kind of the highlights of their time at UMaine in a way that feels personal and authentic as possible. So these stories don't just kind of connect with their academic life, but we're also trying to showcase the things that they do outside of the classroom, whether it be like intramural sports, or, you know, a research opportunity that they have, or like the favorite thing that they like to do in Maine, if they're like going hiking or whatever it might be. And so we work with Patrick to produce this series to try to capture a genuine look at what it looks like to be a University of Maine student, but at the same time really focus on the place setting. And, you know, for our students that either are coming from far away in state or are coming from out of state, giving them a really concrete understanding or sense of place for the state of Maine. Because to be totally candid, the University of Maine is not necessarily close to any other major metro area, right? And so, you know, for the most part, we're asking students to come a far way to attend the University of Maine. And what we're trying to do with this series is capture the essence of what it's like to be here, showcase that in an authentic way. And then, you know, if people get an opportunity to go and watch these videos, you'll see the way they're presented is unique too, right? There's a kind of film-esque look to the videos. The interview sessions with the students feel like they're, you know, entering a journal entry or like doing a vlog or something like that. It feels really personal. And so, yes, a student story series kind of at its core, but we try to add these dimensions that make it feel unique and specific.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So how did the series come about? I know you got the idea from like a cold email or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think folks that work in higher education are really used to getting outreach from different firms or agencies or production groups that do kind of their thing for higher education. They've got like a solution in a box, and they reach out to different administrators and try to see who's gonna take the bait. I don't mean that in a negative way. Those services can be really powerful. But when we had outreach for this particular service, it was essentially like a tour, like a package for a video tour through the university with some student features. And that cold call didn't come through our office. It came through another division on campus. And we had the opportunity to kind of intercept that moment and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for the university. It's something we haven't done before, but is there a way that we can take that same base concept and turn it again into something that feels a little bit more bespoke or a little bit more unique to the university? And so that is how we got that kind of original buy-in. I know there's always this conversation in higher ed about like, how do you get the resources for that? Or who did you have to sell on that idea? And this was really jumping on an opportunity that came our way to really pivot and make something that was unique and really make it feel like UMaine. And so we ended up partnering with enrollment management in the production of this series. And then when we were kind of figuring out who's the right person, or is this something we want to do internally or externally, we have worked with Patrick in the past, and he was really just the right person for this particular thing that we wanted to pull off. And so that's how it all came together.
Awesome. Patrick, tell us about you and your work.
Yeah, so I actually used to work at the University of Maine. I moved to Maine in 2021, fresh out of college from the University of Colorado, and worked at UMaine as a videographer for them for a while, and then went out on my own, started my studio back in 2024. But UMaine has always been near and dear to my heart, and so I've been working with them since. And when I was approached about this project, I was very jazzed because a lot of what I do is centered around like tourism type stuff. That's what my background was in. And this project is essentially tourism for the University of Maine in a way, because, you know, we're selling Maine and we're selling the University of Maine together. We're bottling up together. So it was pretty awesome to do those like combined. Also, like the studio that I started is called Story Stroll. And the focus of the studio is to do story-driven content only. So we won't do any sort of commercial that is not telling an explicit story. So this was like right up the studio's alley, because all we're doing is telling the real raw stories of University of Maine students. You know, we're letting them we direct it, but we let them say how they feel and kind of tell us what they do day to day. If they go to this restaurant, we follow them there and film them there. And we're letting them kind of shape the story and how they've experienced UMaine. And so it's almost like documentary filmmaking. I went to film school. I have a Hollywood style filmmaking background. And so bringing that to like university marketing has been really fun because a lot of university marketing is not done in that manner. And so also kind of bringing some of the aspects that I love in filmmaking. So I love stuff shot on 16 millimeters. So this has that film quality to it, which also brings a sense of nostalgia to these videos. For anyone that goes and watches them, we emulate film when we shoot. Mm-hmm. It would be like $5 million to shoot this series on 16 millimeter film. So we do not do that. But, that's kind of how I kind of go about this project. And that's kind of how I got started with the studio. And yeah, it's been a great time shooting this series with UMaine and Brenn and the team over at the University of Maine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was the thing I responded to, was it was a very filmic style, but also like vlog style. So it just like rode this line of being very approachable and almost user generated, but like if all the people generating the content were like good filmmakers.
Yeah. When we started going about the style of it, my kind of idea for it was, especially with everything going AI now, and how like you watch Tron, the newest Tron movie, Tron Legacy, and then the old Tron. The newest Tron movie has amazing effects and it's amazingly beautiful. Everything looks crystal clear. Everything is polished. You go back and watch the old original Tron, and it is so fun and it's nostalgic, and it's because it's got that texture quality to it. And I kind of equate it. This is a new one that I just came up with like 2 days ago, but I bought a typewriter recently, and I would equate the Life in the Pine series to producing a video series with a typewriter and not using AI to write everything. It's got that texture to it. It's got something, someone is behind it doing it, and it's not just crystal clear 8K video, which gives it a uniqueness, a tactile quality, one could say. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I responded to was the walk and talk interview format. Because, the typical interview format is, sit down, couple of cameras, cut back and forth between cameras. It's tried and true. It works. And I found this to be really cool because it was almost like, because you had an interview in these videos, you do have them doing a more static interview that they're sitting down. But then you have this element where they're walking around and just saying whatever, almost as if no one's asking them questions. Mm-hmm. Like they're just walking around. And I think that just gives such a great sense of movement, but also just authenticity to, you feel like they're not being guided by the marketing team behind the camera. Mm-hmm. So that's what I love about it. How did you achieve that look, Patrick?
Yeah. So when we were thinking about how we wanted to film it, the first rule that I wanted to have for this was it's one person, one crew only, because, college students, having been on the, videographer for UMaine and at CU Boulder before that as a student, you get a whole crew there with like 10 people and all the big lights and cameras and stuff. People start to clam up. They get nervous. And I didn't want that. So the whole time I was like, I just want one camera, one, lav mic or, and a shotgun mic for safety. And that's it. And so for the walk and talk part, we wanted to have, like you said, exactly what you're saying is what we wanted. We wanted them to be real, and not feel guided. So I put the camera on a tripod and emulated what we call like a snorri cam. And in cinema, typically we use that to show like when people are under the influence or like drugged, or you really want to get into the space of that person. And so we emulated that because it really puts you in that space, in that headspace of them. You're with them. So the camera was on a tripod. The two arms went under their underarms and then one just right in their stomach. And they just walked around holding it like that. And the only rule is they have to move the upper body as one piece because that's how you get that. If you don't do that, then it just looks like a vlogging camera. So you have to move everything as one. Then I said, all right, here's the questions that we've talked about, go out and tell me about UMaine. Tell me what you loved. Tell me what you hated. Tell me what you, maybe not hated, but tell me what you loved. Tell me what you maybe had trouble with when you started. Give me all of it, spill the beans, and go. So in season 1, actually, if you go watch, Haven Jones was he was one of the first people we actually filmed for this entire project. And it was a beautiful fall afternoon. And I said, all right, Haven, here you go. This is the setup. And he goes, all right, this is so cool. And he gets on his one wheel, which is like, for those that don't know, one wheel is like a kind of like a skateboard thing, but it's got a giant like off-road wheel in the middle of it. And it's electric and you ride around. Anyway, he got on this one wheel, was holding the tripod like this. And I said, just talk about UMaine. And then he went off and rode all over campus for like 20 minutes. And I just sat on the mall looking at the trees while this kid's rolling around campus on his one wheel with a camera talking about his day.
Hoping he didn't crash with your camera.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yep. That's what I've got insurance for. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I've never had anything happen yet. So that's lucky. And we're on season 3. But anyway, that's kind of how we went about it. And then they'd come back. Then I just listen to what they have to say. And we might do one more like that. We might do 2 different walk and talk styles. And then, like you said, there is one sit down that I typically do. And I mainly do that one for safety. I do that in a spot where I know that I have control over the wind, control over sound. So I always have a backup to cut to. But that's mainly the reason I do that one. So
yeah, it's good to have a safety, and you do want the marketing team to be involved at some point, and there's nothing wrong with the marketing team being involved. You want to make sure you're getting the messaging right. Obviously, there has to be a business purpose for these videos. They have to influence enrollment in some way. So that's all fine. But I liked that balance of like, yeah, we got that, but also let's just let them go rogue and talk about whatever they want for a little bit. For people who are trying to wrap their heads around, I think it's hard to wrap your head around if you aren't seeing the video. But for people who are trying to picture this walk and talk angle, it's almost as if someone on LinkedIn described it as a selfie stick. They thought it was a selfie stick. If he had like a selfie stick, but it was like permanently attached to their body. So it just kind of moves with them. It's kind of like that.
Yep.
What is it about typical college videos that make them so forgettable? If you ask me, it's that the word storytelling has been thrown around so much that we've watered down its meaning to where people think just about anything is a story when it's not. The default approach is like, hi, I'm Sarah, and here's all the reasons I like this program. And then they'll put a dramatic song underneath, and now it's a story, right? Wrong. And it's this misunderstanding of what storytelling is and how to apply that to a marketing context that causes college after college to fall victim to churning out videos that may be clear but aren't compelling. When you work with Unveiled on a video storytelling subscription or a one-off video project, we're going to challenge that default approach. We'll push you to think beyond what someone is saying and focus on why it matters, what it reveals about them, and how it makes the viewer feel. Because the difference between a boring video and a story, I hate to break it to you, is not a drone shot, and it's not an inspiring song. The most effective videos don't just explain something, they create connection, and connection helps differentiate your school from all the others. So take the next step at unveiled.tv and book a call with me. I'd love to hear what you're working on. Okay, let's get back to the show. Okay, so the other thing too, and I'd love to get your take on this, Brenn, is because the editing style has a lot of personality. It has this filmic quality and it has this vlog quality that honestly, like, I feel like a lot of higher ed would not allow. There's a lot of personality in it that I think a lot of higher ed Marcom leaders and enrollment leaders, they want that. They like it when they see it in other schools, but when it comes to them doing it for their brand, they're like, that's too out there. We have to use these, specific font, these specific colors, this exact, this blah, blah, blah. But so Brenn, what was your thinking with just allowing that sort of like loose editing style?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important for me that these videos feel genuine. And a lot of the work that we do, I mean, it's beautiful, it's stunning, it's cinematic, but like, if you see it, it's a commercial. Like, it's an advertisement for the university. And in some ways, that's a really helpful tool at certain times. And other times it feels like, well, people are seeing right through that, right? Like, you're selling me something. And for me, it was important for this series to not to feel that way. And that's part of the reason why we didn't end up pursuing that kind of like boxed option that was pitched to us, is because these students were pretty obviously reading off of a teleprompter or had been kind of like prepped with questions. And I want to make sure if a student struggled through something, or it was a hard transition into university life, or they moved from far away and they missed their family, or it was the first time, like them moving in was the first time they were ever on campus because they chose to come sight unseen. Like, those are the really interesting human parts of the experience. And they're the part of the experience that students need to feel like, oh, I can overcome that too, because nobody's like choosing to go to university is a big life decision, no matter what, whether you're a first generation student or everybody in your family's gone through college. Like, it's a big life decision. And we want to showcase that like these students that are here now have been right where you are and have overcome those things. And I think it just breeds that kind of sense of like, oh, they're not selling me something. They're willing to show that behind the scenes a little bit. And I feel like I can trust, these student voices more than I could something that feels overtly like a commercial.
Yeah. And how were the videos received from leadership? Was there any challenges to them that you had to overcome, or?
That's a good question. And maybe Patrick has a different perspective on this, but we started producing this series in my kind of like after I had been here for a year. And when I started at the university, we started doing a lot of things that were new and very different. So I kind of spent that first year building trust with other folks on campus that like the ideas that are coming out of our office, even though they might not look the way they have in the past, are still effective and can still be successful. And so with that kind of like bedrock in place, we went into this knowing it was going to be kind of exploratory. And I think we always go into those first review meetings with a little bit of like, I don't know what people are going to think about this, especially when you're partnering with like another office on campus, right? It's not just our team that's calling the shots on this one. And Patrick, you might remember this differently, but it felt like everybody was bought in like right after they watched the first episode. Even though it was different, it was like, oh, like I never imagined it could feel like this.
Yeah. Oh, no, I remember it like it was yesterday, because this was one of the first really like good sized contracts that the studio got, was working with UMaine on this. And so I was obviously, floored, and I was like, okay, let's do this. We were in the meeting and it was the Machias episode. So season 1, Patrick Bilodeau, Machias, Maine. It's the satellite campus out on the coast. And I was expecting like some comments here and there, because it was, like Brenn said, it was exploratory. It was, different. And I took some, creative ideas, like making it look super filmic. And like we had talked about that, but, I did it like I was thinking. And everyone was just like, yeah, cool. I love it. And that was that, And now I would say, like, building off of what Brenn said, I mean, we're on season 3 now. So, it seemed like it was very well received in that meeting. And I think one of the things that I remember people feeling was exactly what I wanted it to like evoke in people, is that feeling of like, even though most of the time, the people that are at the flagship campus in Orono aren't out in Machias doing the stuff out there, because it's like 2 hours away. It still was like, oh my gosh, I love it there. That place is amazing. This is somewhere I love. I get to be part of this. Like, I am part of that college, and I made an impact on that student, So I think I remember that really clearly from that meeting. That was, yeah, that was a good meeting. Yeah.
I think it's always a good sign for me, like when I watch a video like that, I'm like, man, I wish I went here for my undergrad. Like, I'm selling myself on the school,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's always we do a lot of videos, and that's one of the things that I say, after a good interview is like, makes me want to go like leave my job and go study that thing.
Yeah.
I've experienced that a handful of times where people are just really good at just talking about it and being excited about it. And there's just something special about that. And the other thing I wanted to point out that I really responded to was the fact that you're calling these a season and episodes. And, whenever I'm browsing the internet or just whatever, I'm always kind of like, the part of my brain is like the marketer in me that's like thinking like, why did I like that? Or like, why didn't I like that? And I'm always like kind of analyzing, and I'm like, something about just calling it a season made me want to watch multiple episodes, and it's almost like, I mean, it's literally a one word addition or a change. And suddenly I feel like you're giving my brain the cue to go down a rabbit hole, which is different than having a playlist that's like, well, here's the arts program, and here's this program, and then that program, which, that can function as a rabbit hole, as a lot of playlists do. But something about calling it a season and episodes, I just noticed in my brain, I was like, oh, like I kind of want to like watch this whole series,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could say that was like a masterstroke of like marketing genius, and that we were like, if we say season, then they'll want to watch all of it. But like, when you're putting these things together, you're trying to find a way to package them and like put together your release strategy. And it's what made sense at the time. But I know something that was really in my mind as we were working on the first season, and it still is kind of a hallmark of how we do this, is like, even if a student isn't interested in a particular major, we still want that video to have something for them, whether it be, like a student's really into intramurals, or they always wanted to see this part of Maine and this video showcases that part of Maine, or this student is from this state that I'm from and I can better understand what my experience relocating is going to be like, even though they're into whatever forestry and I'm into marine biology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The fact that because the first one I watched was the forestry one.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed myself, like, and Brenn, you and I were talking before we started recording about gardening.
Mm-hmm.
That's my latest obsession, is just like being out in my yard and like just tweaking, just like looking, like watching paint dry, like looking for sprouts to come up. And, but I watched that forestry one and I'm like, I'm not a forester, but like I could get into that. And the fact that like this guy is taking me around the forest and I'm seeing like the stuff, like the culture of UMaine here is like very naturey. That made me want to go there, even just to be in that environment.
Yeah.
It's so cool because that was just an internship that I'm guessing that was Alan's out in the Brookton. Yeah. That was like 2.5 hours away. And he did an internship where he just lived out there for like 2 months. And we connected and we were like, yeah, we definitely want to show that. And so we went out and got in a truck and drove like 30 miles into the pure North woods, nothing around, and just like walked into the woods. Couldn't see the road, nothing. And it was cool to like, that's what these students get to do, So I think it's cool. Yeah.
This is something we didn't get to talk about when we first recorded this, so maybe I could take the opportunity. But, one of the things that I think makes this unique is that we don't have a set plan for how the story is going to go. We pre-interview all of the students who we work with, and we're really trying to find like, what are the 3 unique and identifiable pieces of their story that just come through conversation that we want to make sure we can highlight, whether it's like an internship or the fact that they play in a band, or like one of the students who came to UMaine, he's an international student. He came without like a car or anything. He had, I can't remember if it was a professor or somebody, a staff member, but they ended up bartering with him. They were like, if you give me a chocolate bar, I'll give you this bike that I have. And so like Patrick ended up recording him like riding the bike around and telling that little story, but we wouldn't have known that had we not done that kind of pre-interview and specifically sought out those things that are unique details.
Yep.
I'm always collecting good interview questions. What was the question that you used to arrive at that story of like trading a chocolate bar for a bike?
That's a great question.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I wish I knew, because like, you're just always waiting for those like little things to come out that it's like, okay, that's going to be the like linchpin that's going to help connect like the community life, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. I can't remember if that came out of a pre-interview or because lots of times like weird moments pop out because we'll do the pre-interview questions. And then when I'm actually interviewing them, I go down rabbit holes and try to find tangents and, weave my way into their stories. And I cannot remember because that was, 2 years ago at this point too. Yeah. But yeah, he traded a chocolate bar for a bicycle with a professor. And like, he's so funny. I love Cater. But yeah, I know their favorite question, actually it's their least favorite question, if you like a good question, is describe the University of Maine poetically. And that's how we get our best quotes, I would say. Is that?
Oh, I would hate that one too.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's tough. I'm like, you're kayaking or canoeing through the wilderness. What do you do? So yeah. Sometimes you get good answers.
I'm curious what the responses would be on that.
Yeah.
It's funny when you embrace those things that initially make you like cringe a little bit. Like they can kind of be the best exercises.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have this business coach, and we would do this workshop every year, like goal planning for the next year. And it's this big, long process of, that you go through this like formulated process of structuring out your goals. But one of the part is write a letter to yourself from last year describing how the year's going to go and what you need to watch out for and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like resisted that so hard. I'm like, I can't, this is so corny. I can't like, my coach is going to see this.
Yeah.
It's like weirdly intimate, but then I wrote it and I was like, oh, I actually discovered something about myself and about my goals by doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got about 20 minutes and we've got a lot of questions. So I want to hop into the Q&A here. I often post when I remember to post on LinkedIn and ask people to submit questions, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes we get one, sometimes we get none. In this case, I think we had 6 or 7. So, and then all the Gen Zs that are listening to this episode in the car all just went 6, 7, or Gen Alphas, I guess that would be.
Yeah.
I said this when we recorded the first time, but I apologize in advance if I mess up your name. I intended to like reach out individually to each of these people to like ask them to pronounce their name for me, and then I realized that I never did. So Dustin Ramsdell, higher ed edtech content creator, asks, I'd want to know more about the launch process. Did they have to do a prototype to justify the investment, or did they have the freedom to enable this vision on their own?
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke to this a little bit. This series came together after I'd already been at the university for about a year. And so we had that like level of trust and buy-in that just comes with time and continued connection. And then we ID'd this opportunity where there was some level of buy-in on this concept of like a video tour series through campus. And because, there was already kind of an idea of how much that might cost and what it would take to produce it, we were able to leverage that information, the fact that people already were kind of into it, and pivot it into this thing that was a little bit more brand aligned for the university. So not really any tricks to justifying the investment. I think folks, this is true in higher ed in general. I think people really understand the power of video, now at this point. And so it's, okay, they've got this idea for what it could be. We know what it can be, and how do we bring people along for the ride? And fact of the matter is you just kind of have to back it up with the quality of the work, right? Like that first episode that we went and showed, like it speaks to Patrick's talent for capturing these stories. Like, there was, after that first video, it was like no reservations, like let's go finish off the season.
Yeah, and I would kind of say, I guess I don't remember when we did the first season, if there was a plan for second, third, fourth, fifth at all.
No, yeah, not really. Yeah, I think it was like
first season was a test, I guess, in
some ways.
Yeah. Unexpectedly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Aaron Vellante, content creator at University of Kansas, says, great share and great video content. Wow. I love their Tour My Major series, and I'd love to know how they approached that.
Yeah. So Tour My Major is another video series that we produce, which actually came after we did the first season of Life in the Pines, and we saw how much people resonated with the kind of like handheld camera, student kind of leading the interview. And so, we often have different departments on campus come to us and say, hey, can you highlight, X program? We're really trying to make a push this year for this enrollment cycle. And so one of the things we're always trying to do in our shop is think, okay, how can I solve this kind of like common or universal problem for campus through a solution that's, that can either become a series or it can be a little bit more turnkey. So we're not reinventing the wheel every single time somebody comes to us with a need like this. And so Tour My Major was really born out of that. And rather than trying to do the full, like all-encompassing, this is the story of the student in Tour My Major really becomes an ambassador for the program. And they speak through their experience, and we take them really specifically through classroom environments or training environments or research labs or that kind of thing. So it's a little more academic in nature, but it still has that kind of handheld vlog feel where it's the student telling the story and it's not, faculty or somebody else. And it's short form too. That's another element here. We're trying to keep these things at least pretty concise.
Awesome. That's helpful. Samantha Perry from UMaine says Brenn Borror is the GOAT.
Yeah. So Sam oversees social media strategy for the university, and she's great. She's excellent. So always good to have a very smart social media strategist in your camp. So appreciate the shout out.
I originally reached out to Sam about this episode, and then she told me to reach out to you, Brenn. So thanks for the assist, Sam. So Mickey Bedell, hopefully one of those is right, formerly at Dartmouth College and now senior social media manager at King Arthur Baking Company, which I have in my pantry, the flour. I'm going to shorten this question a little bit. What do the YouTube analytics look like behind the scenes? This is the kind of work that the whole industry seems to aspire to. Beautifully produced. The styling is great. Love the selfie stick and the cinematic B-roll combo. Most comms teams can't pull the resources together for this stuff. Anything converting for admissions or reputation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. And I think it's something that's on everybody's mind when they're trying to kind of wrap their head around the investment of a series like this. And truth be told, like, we're not laser focused on performance with series like this. Like if you're measuring by overall like organic views and that kind of thing, and particularly not on YouTube. So Like the second season of Life in the Pines, the viewership on YouTube comprises like less than 2% of our overall view count, if you're considering like Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And something that's been, a little bit of a paradigm shift for us is we're not considering these videos to be the place where we're going to convert a student, right? Like, I don't think somebody's going to see one of these videos and then go, submit their application to come to the university. What I'm always thinking about is like, how do we continue to like pull prospective students into our orbit and get them closer and closer to the university? And so I think of these videos as like a little stepping stone and movement toward us, particularly for these videos. And when I think about our YouTube strategy in general, I'm not thinking about them as tools for awareness generation or that kind of like first time they're going to interact with UMaine. I think of it as like an opportunity to connect with a student that's maybe midway through their search process, kind of has seen what's out there. And these videos get to be a really unique, different, and kind of like uniquely identifiable opportunity to understand what the University of Maine is, what it's like to live in Maine, and help distinguish UMaine from the other schools that they're looking at. And as much as I want, a video like this to move a student toward the university, I also think it's just as helpful for students who are making that choice to say, okay, that's probably not the right school for me, right? Like, the marketer in me always is trying to move a student toward us, but the human in me is like, I also want people to figure out if this is the right place for them, right? UMaine is not going to be the right choice for every single student. And I think videos like this help students make that decision, a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's like virality versus evergreen, because a video that might grow super viral on YouTube may only survive being viral for a month and then it has no purpose. But something like this is evergreen, and it's going to, 10 years from now, these videos are going to do the same thing that they're doing today. And I think one of the other aspects of that, we talked about this last time a little bit, but is it's also helpful for students that are already at UMaine for retention, because I've talked to a lot of students on campus doing other projects outside of Life in the Pines. And most people know about it. They watch it. And the people that I've talked to about it are like, oh my gosh, it's so cool to go to a school where I get to see that stuff. Or like, yeah, I saw this episode and that was my friend. And I think Brenn can probably talk to this a little bit more, but like, I think it does a very good job at that, to the point where they don't actually have to go find students anymore. Like, do you want to bring that up? Because I feel like that's better for you to talk about, but I think that's a good example of how this benefits the students already here too, and keeping them from like going somewhere else in 2 years or whatever.
Yeah, there's always that question of like, how do you get students that are going to be good on camera, or like, how do you go and actively recruit students? And to be honest, the first season was really a proactive outreach process for us. So we were working with our colleges and the deans and other faculty and staff members to identify students that are good, representatives of their area. And then we do the interview, that kind of first interview, to make sure, okay, there's something here that we can work with, and this student's going to be engaged with us in the process. But we never know exactly how they're going to be on camera. And that's really Patrick's, one of his unique skills, is really making people feel comfortable and kind of getting the best out of them when they're behind a camera or in front of a camera. And then after the success of the first season, for the second season, we were basically able to do an open call through Instagram and say, hey, if you've seen these and you want to be part of the next season, let us know. And so we had students reach out to us that way. And that's pretty much how we cast the entire second season. And then now, 2 years into this process, we've done it again for the third season, but we actually upped our ask a little bit. And for students that were interested, we asked that they submit like a little 60-second video of themselves answering a question, just to try to get a sense of like how they feel on camera. But also, it's really important for us to have students that are really committed to being part of the process, because these shoots are typically not one day. Sometimes they are, but it's typically multiple days, where it's like, okay, I'm going to connect with you early in the semester, and then maybe I'll check back in with you a couple weeks later when you're doing this like unique specific activity. And so we need students that are going to be in it with us and willing to work on a little bit longer time horizon.
Yeah. And I think that kind of showcases the, how it's affecting people on campus as well, or even freshmen. Like, we have sophomores doing it, and, people are seeing it and applying. And I don't think they'd do that, especially doing those 60-second videos, if they didn't like the series, you know what I mean? Or it didn't affect them in some way. So I think it's fun to see that. I think we lots of times look at, obviously I'm not on the marketing team, but I would think, a lot of times we're looking outward, like getting students to come to UMaine, but also, or any college, but it's also about keeping students there. I can say when I was at CU Boulder, I loved CU, but I looked at switching to UT Austin when I was there my freshman year. I decided to stay, but it crossed my mind. And I will say that some of the videos the CU put out kept me there. So, yep. And I ended up working with that team. So
send that to our friends at CU Boulder.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that. Yeah. I mean, we don't think about retention enough because I've mentioned a number of times in this podcast, I went to a school, my first year of art school was in Baltimore, and then I ended up transferring back home. And so like, I was one of those students that like bailed, and there are things that could have been done to keep me there. And it's important to keep current students engaged. And I think when they can see themselves in a thing, when it's a thing like a series, an episode, whatever, now it's like, okay, now I want to be part of this. And the other thing you mentioned is like the time commitment, and that's the one thing that I've learned from casting a lot of these types of things for our own work. We have a whole process that we do with every school that we work with that we do casting for. We always like continue to refine the process. And one of the helpful things has been adding in like just setting expectations for like how long we're going to need them for, because we've had it happen where they're like really excited and then they're like, all right, well, I've got an hour for you. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, we're like really far into this for you to be telling me now that you only have an hour to film. So it's good to set those expectations up front. Okay, I want to combine two questions here. So Elias Moser from University of Kansas asks, I'd love to hear more about what they view as a successful video series. While they have a great subscriber count, it seems like they don't get many views. That's the one thing. We already kind of talked about that, but coupling that with Matt Hames from 3 Enrollment Marketing says, what are the implications of managing a feed that went viral 15 years ago? How does it impact planning and reporting? So I think what some people might be responding to is the high subscriber count. Are these videos driving that, or was something else driving that, and these videos are being used for something else? So give us some context about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I often feel like our YouTube subscriber count does us a disservice because there's, maybe 38,000 or 40,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And really, those predominantly came from a series of videos that were produced by the university's cooperative extension program many years ago, like early 2010s. And they're great videos, but they're all focused in this kind of like how-to style, whether it be like how to prune your raspberry bushes or how to get your garden ready for the winter, or like it's those kind of like life things that a lot of people are interested in. And the extension just did an excellent job during that period of time, and they still release great instructional content. But that period was really of YouTube culture, was like YouTube as a search engine to figure out how do I solve this problem, and they played right into that. And so I still think the most viewed video on our YouTube channel is like instructional on how to like cook a lobster, which that feels kind of on brand for Maine, so I'm not mad about that. But so that's where a majority of those subscribers came from, and we're glad to have those people around, but they're not necessarily the ones that are watching the Life in the Pines series, right? And so the question about like impacting planning and reporting, YouTube is not necessarily pillar platform for us, and that like we're not expecting that to be the place where we're getting the majority of our viewership. We know that Instagram and TikTok and Facebook are platforms for us where we can reach both our existing audience, but also new audiences just more effectively than we can on YouTube. So, we spoke about that a little bit, but to me, YouTube is really helpful for that middle section of the buying decision process where you're like, okay, I'm already pretty bought in on the idea of this school. Now I want to go on the rabbit hole, like down the rabbit hole, and learn everything that there is to know and really get a sense of this place. And I find that students are really doing that before they like come for a visit, right? So I think we've seen the stages of the enrollment process kind of flip around a little bit in the past few years, where like, students really apply first and wait to see if they're in, and then they'll go for like a campus tour or a campus visit or something like that. But I still think there's that in-between part where they're trying to get a sense of the place before they even get there. I know I do that myself with like buying decisions. Like I'm a nerd about like researching the things that I buy, because like I just want to know everything that I can know before I make that choice. And I think videos like this and the way I see our YouTube channel is like, it's an opportunity for people that are in that stage of the buying process to go and learn as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I actually, after the first time we recorded this episode, I wrote a whole newsletter based on that topic of our conversation last time about, low view counts don't tell the whole story, or don't even tell the story at all. Because, I think people are looking for the wrong story. They're looking for like view counts equals success. And actually a lot of times, I've heard, people say that like, you actually like going viral hurt me, or something like that, because now we got all these viewers that are completely irrelevant. The algorithm's all screwed up. It's delivering our stuff now to all these random, people that came from the virality, and no one's buying our stuff. And so, and it made me reflect on my journey as a content creator. I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I'm very consistent with this podcast and a newsletter. You would look at my follower count on LinkedIn and not bat an eye at it. It's not that impressive. You would look at my subscribers on my newsletter. It's not that impressive. And my YouTube or my podcast analytics under the hood, also bordering on embarrassing. If you were to like, how many downloads do you get or whatever? I mean, this podcast has been around since 2021. So 5 years in, and it really like the under the hood numbers haven't budged much. But what I do get is like a lot of, number one, I can point to many amounts of dollars that I've booked as a result of certain podcast episodes where I would not have gotten that opportunity outside of that. So number one, that's the thing. I don't care about views. I care about putting food on the table, and then also, I'm going for deeply engaged people. I'm creating a library for the higher ed marketer or enrollment management leader that has these problems and is looking at how to solve them. And they're going to land on my YouTube, or they're going to land on, Apple Podcasts or whatever, and go, oh my gosh, there's a whole library of problems that are being solved episode after episode. I want to, go down this list. And I get that kind of feedback a lot where it's like, oh my gosh, I discovered your podcast and there's so many great topics. Like I have all these problems. Like we need to reorient ourselves to what success looks like, because a lot of the marketing work that higher ed teams do is really living in that middle funnel, because a lot of times the top of the funnel is taken care of by whoever's running the ads. Maybe they're creating a top of funnel, series organically, but the general, like we're marketing this program and we're creating this anthem video and stuff, like there's not millions of people that's even going to apply to, but there are millions of people, 3.5 million people who viewed this video of yours. Your top video is how to look for and avoid bed bugs in hotel or motel rooms. That applies to literally everybody.
Yeah.
No,
The bed bugs video. Yeah. No, and I'm not mad about it, right? Like I'm glad for people to have that information. And, on the off chance someone watches that has like a kid that's in high school right now, and they're like, oh, the University of Maine is like doing interesting stuff. Like that's not such a bad thing, but I'm not expecting that to be the default scenario by which we obtain a student, right?
Yeah. And the other thing I mentioned too in my newsletter about this was like, when you're doing distribution properly, because distribution is like one of my huge pillars. Like, why are you creating this thing if you're just going to let the algorithm like blow it into the wind and see what happens? If you're doing proper distribution and you're hand delivering that or hand embedding that into specific spots where people are going to see it, low view count is to be expected, because thousands of people aren't getting this email or, whatever the context is. So it's actually kind of a sign that you're not playing to the algorithm. You're actually playing to like, what is going to actually get us results in the door with this video. And this is to be used as a tool for enrollment. It's, it's not just a bragging thing of how many, comments and likes and stuff we got if no one's signing up for anything.
Yeah. I don't want people to listen to this and then think, okay, I'm going to go pitch this same kind of thing and like sell it based on viewership or like the opportunity to go viral, because there is no world where a 3-minute student story, like from a university that most people don't think about in their day to day, is going to like take off. Like it's just, it's just not what's going to happen.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, this has been great. Thanks for humoring us a second time here.
Yeah, of course.
And I feel like this episode was as good, if not better than the first time we recorded, because we got a lot of practice in. So.
Yeah, there we go.
I see numbers still rolling on Riverside. That's a good sign. I see
and I've got the Life in
everyone's
the Pines merch on too. So, little shout out there.
Yeah. Patrick really came prepared. He's got a University of Maine hat
bookstore. Yeah.
and a Life of the Pines shirt. All right. Well, where can people connect with you guys if they want to reach out and, I don't know, hire you for a video, Patrick, or work on your team or whatever, Brenn?
Yeah, you go first, Patrick.
All right, yeah. So my studio is called Story Stroll. We're here in Bangor, Maine, but we do stuff all over. So you can reach me at patrick@storystrollstudios.com or look us up pretty much on any social media or the website at Story Stroll Studios. And yeah, we do all sorts of stuff. We do original storytelling for ourselves and people to enjoy as an audience, and commercial. And we apply the same original storytelling to our commercials. That's specifically what we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, if there's opportunities on my team, I'll share those there. We're hiring right now for a few positions. And also, it's great to work at UMaine, even if you don't work in marketing or enrollment. So, and then follow University of Maine on Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok if you want to see more of the stuff that we get up to.
Yeah, you should definitely go work at UMaine with them. They're awesome. I actually worked at UMaine, but it was before Brenn started. He started like the same week I left, and I love Brenn. He's awesome. So definitely go join the team there. Everyone on that team's awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, if this doesn't work out for me with the video thing, with owning my own company, I'm coming down Brenn Street.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I want to give you two things before you go. Number one, reminder to sign up for the Higher Ed Storytellers Digest. It's my free weekly newsletter for Marcom leaders where we talk about all things content creation and strategy in higher ed. Subscribe at unveiled.tv/newsletter. Number two, follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my name is John Azzoni, and it's spelled Johnazoni. All right, I'll catch you on the next episode, and in the meantime, I'll see you in your inbox. Okay, bye.